Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our Study at ACU webinar, where this evening we'll be focusing on returning to studies. My name is Dave, and I'm the Future Student Coordinator at ACU based at our beautiful Melbourne campus. Joined with me is Anne, and Anne, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, thanks, Dave. As Dave said, my name's Anne. I'm currently studying at our Brisbane campus. I would have said a bit more beautiful than Melbourne, but I won't get into that with you. I'm a third year midwifery student and have been with ACU since the beginning of degree. Obviously 3 years it's taken me so far.
Thanks so much for that, Anne. So in tonight's presentation, I'm going to give you a little bit more information about ACU, what it's like to return to study, because some of you might be a bit unsure. You may have been out of the education system for a little while now, and that's why it's great that I have Anne with me. I'll be asking her some really good questions, but also you'll notice on the right-hand side of your screen that there is a chat function. So we do encourage you to ask as many questions as you like, and some of the good ones, I'll then relay that on to Anne, or I'll answer them myself. We also have a number of team members behind the scenes, and they'll be trying to answer as many questions as they can via text. But look, if we don't get to your question tonight, we do encourage you to get in touch afterwards to ask ACU. I'll give you a bit more information about that later towards the end of the presentation. But without further ado, let's begin. So let's go straight into it. So ACU, for those of you that don't know, we are quite a large institution. We pretty much have campuses all around Australia. So as you can see on the screen there, we have campuses in Queensland. We now have 3 in Sydney, 1 in Canberra in the ACT, 2 down in beautiful Victoria with Ballarat and Melbourne, 1 over in South Australia, and we're also lucky enough to have a campus over in Rome, Italy. Now, the great thing, why I love ACU, is that even though we are a large institution, each of these campuses are quite small, especially when you do compare them to other university campuses at one of our capital cities. Now, that might not sound that impressive, but the great thing about that is each campus, you're always going to be involved in a nice small community, smaller classroom sizes that are going to be more collaborative, and you're more likely to have positive and long-lasting relationships with your peers, as well as your teachers and lecturers. So that's really advantageous when you do choose to study at ACU. Now, I guess that brings my first question to you, Anne. Would you like to share with the audience why you decided to study at ACU?
Sure, most definitely. A number of years ago, life as I know it changed, wasn't expected at all, and I got to rethink what I was going to do with the rest of my life, basically. When I looked at what I wanted to do, ACU offered midwifery. It was close to home. It also had what they call as our Community Achievers program, which is the form of entry, which I know we'll talk about shortly. Basically, the campus, the small class sizes, the small campus itself, being my first foray into university, it wasn't as nerve-wracking as I thought it was going to be.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for that, Anne. Now, moving on, I just wanted to bring everyone's attention to all the amazing courses that we do have available at all of our campuses. I guess the big takeaway with this slide is to make sure you do your research, because each campus offers a different range of courses compared to other campuses as well. But look, we do have a fantastic range. We've got some great allied health programs with occupational therapy, physiotherapy, business, creative arts. We've got a great law degree, nutrition, biomedical science, psychology. If you're interested in sports and exercise science, we have a suite of degrees with exercise and sports science, high performance sport, as well as sport and outdoor education. Teaching and education, whether you're looking at doing early childhood or primary or secondary, we do have a course for you. Theology, youth work, and community development. So again, make sure you do your research because not every course may be available at the campus that you are looking to study at. Now, for those of you that are interested in applying for mid-year entry, some of these courses are available for semester 2. So again, need to do your research to see which ones are available. But for those that are, mid-year applications, if you are applying direct, close on the 20th of July. So that is for direct applications. Really important thing to remember is to check out each individual course browser. So that's as simple as Googling accounting, finance, ACU. It'll come up with a course browser, and that'll give you steps on how to apply if you are looking at applying mid-year or even semester 1 for 2021. Okay, so again, I just want to quickly talk about pathways as well. Now, we are a national university, so this is quite a generic slide. So you will see there, one way to get into university is completing your HSC. Some of you, though, might be down in Victoria, so you may have completed your VCE. Some of you may not have completed high school at all. There's loads of other pathways, and we will talk about this a little bit later. Loads of other pathways to get into university. You may have completed a certificate or a diploma at a TAFE or private institution. You may have completed another bachelor's degree as well. The big thing to remember with pathways is, again, to do your research, because each pathway is going to be different. And each prospective student is going to have their own individual pathway, purely dependent on their career aspirations as well as their study aspirations. Now, there's a common misconception out there that if you are a non-school leaver or a mature age student, that it might be a bit easier to get into university. And it's important when you are applying to a course to make sure that you broaden your horizons, don't have all of your eggs in the one basket, and create some backup options, if in the instance you're not to receive an offer straight away. So an example of this, you might be interested in studying a Bachelor of Nursing at ACU for semester 1 next year. Now, we've got a fantastic nursing course, but apply for nursing, obviously, but you do want to keep your options open. With ACU College, that's a partner of ACU, we also offer a diploma of nursing. So if in the instance you don't go straight into nursing, you can complete a diploma of nursing. Once you've completed the diploma, go over, apply for the Bachelor of Nursing at ACU. Once you're in the Bachelor, you'll bring credits across, and so the actual course won't be as long. Another example is you might be interested in education. Now, education degrees, they are quite competitive to get into. As a backup plan, I'd recommend that you also apply for educational studies. That way, if you don't go straight into one of our education courses, you can complete a Bachelor of Educational Studies or a Diploma of Educational Studies. And that way, if you don't receive an offer, complete the first year of that pathway program, and then you might go into the second year of the bachelor's degree. So you don't lose any time at all with that pathway. So the important thing is to do your research, because it is purely dependent on what you're interested in. We're here to help though. So if you do want us to put together a pathway for you, we really do recommend that you get in touch. Okay, so how does a non-school leaver enter ACU? But firstly, some of you might not know, because this term is thrown around a lot. What is a non-school leaver? So non-school leaver students are regarded as students who enter university based on having exited school 3 years ago or longer. So if you're applying as a non-school leaver to ACU, as I said, there's a common misconception that it is easier to get in, but you still need to show us or meet the entry requirements of the relevant course as outlined in the course browser. So for those of you that have completed year 12, we might be basing your application on your year 12 ATAR or OP or HSE, whichever you completed. We might also be looking at, some of you might be interested in completing the special tertiary admissions test. That's a STAT test to gain entry. As mentioned, some of you might have completed a certificate. So we look at ACU Accept Cert 4 or above diplomas, and some of you may have also completed previous higher education, educational studies as well. We also offer a suite of programs to assist you getting into ACU as well. And I might get you to jump in here again, Anne, because you were accepted with the Community Achiever program, and that looks at, yeah, beautiful. So would you like to talk about that, please?
Sure, most definitely. So the Community Achiever program is basically based on your volunteer work in the community. ACU as a whole looks at the fact of the type of people they want studying their degrees as well, and giving back to the community is a big part of the university. So my previous So my original, what we call here in Queensland, was an OP up until last year, was still considered, but I actually had early entry via the Community Achievers program, applying with my volunteer work, which included work with Surf Life Saving Queensland and Australia, and also our local rugby club where my children played. I applied through that program, and with my already existing OP, which was more than 20 years old at the time, was accepted and knew that I was already into the course by August of the year prior to when I started.
Great, thanks so much for that, Anne. Yeah, a fantastic program that I do recommend. If you have made some contributions in your community, we do recommend to apply to our Community Achievers program. Now, I just also wanted to draw everyone's attention to the current cohort at ACU, because another misconception for non-school leavers is that university is just for young people. You know, you complete high school and you go into university. But look, as you can see on the screen there, less than half of the current ACU cohort are recent secondary education students who are admitted solely by their ATAR. So we've got a quarter of our cohort who have completed a previous higher education study. We have a large chunk who have completed vocational education training, so vet study, another large chunk that have completed work and life experience, and other criteria that doesn't meet an ATAR as well. So we do have a broad and diverse student cohort at ACU, and it's not all just people coming straight out of high school. We have people from all ages and all different backgrounds as well. So it's another common misconception out there for non-school leavers, and something that you obviously don't need to worry about, because as you can see on that fancy little pie chart there, we do have a broad range of students from all areas, ages and backgrounds. Cool. So for anyone, from students from all ages, university, it's a huge commitment, and there's lots of different ways we can look at juggling our work, our relationships, our family with our studies as well. So let's have a quick look. So with university, there's loads of other time commitments that you'll need to look at. And as I mentioned, that's a variety of things such as families, relationships, vegan hobbies, study, health, fitness, all those sorts of things. So I might get you to jump back on again, Anne, because I'd really love you to elaborate, because you're obviously juggling a lot of things with your midwifery studies. What or how do you achieve your work life and study life balance?
At times, and at different times of the semester, it can be a challenge. I have 2 teenage boys who I'm a single mum to. I have 3 part-time jobs at different times of the year, depending on the time of year, because I also have a Christmas job becomes number 3. And it does become a challenge. It means being very organised. It means basically setting a plan, making sure you have that support where you need it, whether it be family support or friends, and basically sit down and have a conversation with the important people in your life when you start this and say, look, this is important. There will be times where I need to give priorities to my studies, and that's a lot when depending on the degree that you do. It is very time consuming, and it means getting people's buy-in to be able to get their help as well, which has been really, really, really helpful. I've been very lucky that my boys are towards the end of high school themselves, so that they are a little bit more self-sufficient than little children. But it certainly is always a work in progress and a negotiation.
And have you developed, I guess, strategies as you've moved along, Anne? Because you're currently in 3rd year now. Were there some, I guess, learning outcomes from those early years with your studies?
There was, most definitely. Earlier on in the degree, especially in the first 2 years, there was a lot of group work to take place. So it meant not leaving things to the last minute, because you can guarantee if you leave things to the last minute, something's going to come unstuck. Especially when you then start, doing placement, in my case, at a hospital. I have shift work involved as well. So to have a plan in place, I sit down normally at the beginning of every semester and have a calendar that tells me when a particular piece of assessment, for example, is due, and then work commitments around those, because a lot of them are quite time consuming, especially when you end up with an essay. And essays aren't necessarily, when I came back to study, something that I'd done a lot of in the previous 20 years, that's for sure.
We sound very organised and on top of it. Thank you so much.
So far, so good.
I'll ask you to stay on, I guess, as well, because university commitment, it involves a variety of things, and for those of you particularly that have been out of the education system for a while and may not really know what university is all about, the classes and the structure of university is very, very different to what you may have experienced in high school. At school, you're there from about 8:30 to 3, and you've just got back-to-back classes, and you have a recess and lunch. Where university, there's different ranges of classes. We have our lectures, we have our labs, tutorials, and other sorts of things. So what does a typical day or typical week in your life look like, Anne, with university?
Sure. To be honest, over the 3 years, they've very much changed as well. So in my first year, you don't do any prac until the very end. So the 4 weeks leading up to Christmas in my first year, I spent 4 weeks full-time at the hospital. Prior to that, during the university term, we were basically on campus 4 days a week. Some of those weren't necessarily full days. They may have only been, say, a 2-hour tutorial or a 2-hour lab in what I have. And it's basically then evolves from there. So, for example, in second year, in first and second semester, I was 2 days a week on campus, which was a Monday, Tuesday, both semesters. And then it means fitting in 2 shifts a week at the hospital in addition to that as well. So it certainly evolves. And then this year, being third year, we had a 2-week intensive at the beginning of the university semester. And then basically the rest of it's all been at the hospital. So it's fitting in 3 shifts a week. And next semester is basically the same, but I fit in 4 shifts a week instead. So it's basically evolved as my degree has evolved as well.
So it sounds like it has been flexible as well.
Oh, most definitely. So you flexible and not as well. So flexible in that your lectures are recorded most of the time. So you don't necessarily have to attend those in person. The tutorials with my degree, you do. They actually have to be there in person. You have to be there for 80% of them. And the lab, so that's actually the practical skills. So actually working in a lab based around a hospital ward, they're 100% attended. So if you've got a lab, you must actually be there for it.
Wonderful, wonderful. That's a great insight. Thank you so much. And I'd just like to reiterate a few things for that. So if you're looking at studying something like midwifery, you're going to have 3 types of subjects or classes. You'll have your lectures, you'll have your tutorials, and then you have those pracs. And this is different for each course, but commonly lectures, luckily, are recorded, and in some instances they're not compulsory to attend. So if you do have a lot of things going on with family and work, the great thing with ACU, most of those lectures are recorded, so you don't have to attend them. When you get home from work that night, you can sit down and watch them in the comfort of your lounge room, which is great. With the tutorials and practical classes, in most instances, they are compulsory to attend, but you do get some flexibility where you allocate those. So when you go through your timetabling, and we'll talk about this a little bit later in the presentation, you can put in some preferences where you would like to allocate those classes. So some of you might like to try and cram those over 1, 2 or 3 days if you are studying full time. Others might like to broaden that out, I guess, as well. And that's what we can see here with the different unit differences. So see, you might have a particular subject and that just has a 1-hour lecture and a 2-hour tutorial. Another unit might have a video conference, which is 2 hours. That's great. Don't have to go on into campus to look at that with a 2-hour tutorial. Whereas other units might have those practicals as well. So with our hands-on courses such as midwifery or nursing, those practicals might involve a number of things. We have fantastic on-site facilities on campus that you use at the start of your degree. And then once you've learned all of your hands-on stuff in that controlled environment, you will go off and work in the real workforce whilst you're still studying as well. There's some really cool things in our labs for midwifery. And did you use those mannequins, those dolls, early on in your course?
Yes, certainly did it, and even this year as well. We actually have a mannequin here in Brisbane that actually gives birth. It's one of only 2, I believe, in the Southern Hemisphere.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, it's amazing. Doesn't quite measure up now that I've been in the real thing a number of times, but it is a great basis of your knowledge, most definitely. So very, very, very privileged and very, very lucky to have worked with that for sure.
Yeah, it's lucky we do have those facilities so that our students do learn in that controlled environment before they go off and work in clinical work, aged care, hospitals. Because I know if I was a patient and I had a student nurse with me, I'd hope they'd have some form of experience as well. So it's great that we have practical experience both on campus, but also in the real life. So it's great experience for our current students. Now, how do we get prepared for university? So there's a number of things that we do need to take into consideration. So obviously we will be looking at applying for a course. Now there's a number of ways you can apply for a university degree. It will depend on the course as well as the state that you're in. You might need to apply through a tertiary admission centre. Now, if you're in Queensland, that would be through QTAC, for example. New South Wales would be UAC, or if you're in Victoria, you'd be looking at applying through VTAC. Other courses might allow you to apply direct, so directly through the ACU website. All applications are online, and the best way to find out the application procedure for your particular course is to jump onto the course browser, and it'll give you all the information that you need to know there. Or alternatively, you can always get in touch with us, give us a call, send us an email. We'd be more than happy to assist you with your application. But getting prepared, if you apply and receive an offer, you'll then go through your enrolment. So setting up things such as maybe HEX, if you're looking to defer your payments, setting up things such as your subjects, selecting the right subjects, setting up your email, orientation, going through your timetable, textbooks. You might need lab coats, for example, if you're doing a hands-on course. How did you find this experience, Anne, from enrolment, timetable, all those sorts of things?
To be honest, it was very smooth. You even to the point where you have your student ID, so you can move forward with that as well. You actually choose your own photo on it. So you don't actually have to go and have your photo taken. It's all very streamlined and smooth. One recommendation I would have when it comes to things like textbooks is to not buy anything before your first lecture. Other than the fact you can buy them secondhand, a lot of them are available via our library website. So there's no cost involved. I have purchased a couple, but they're ones that were recommended that I would use for the entire 3 years of my degree. And I'm a very practical, hands-on type person, so I like the physical textbook. But the vast majority are available via the ebook, via the library website. So my recommendation is to not buy a thing before that first lecture, because the lecturers are really good at giving you an idea of what's good to have. And what you don't need to spend that money on, because there's better things to spend that money on than a textbook.
Look, that's great advice, and I agree with you 100%. Back when I had studied, I made the mistake in my very first semester to go out and purchase every textbook. And look, they can be expensive, and it is important when you are considering to study to factor in those costs, but wait for that first lecture, because as Anne said, they might be available in our library, or from our lecturer, and it could be completely free of charge as well. But look, other things to think about when preparing for university study. A lot of study is online now as well. So obviously you'll need to have internet, Wi-Fi. You know, if you're looking to complete online quizzes and those sorts of things, interact with your lecturers and peers and teachers. And you're looking to obviously have things such as computer. You might need to print off a lot of readings at home as well. So those extra things definitely need to consider when you're preparing yourself for university life. Cool. And scholarships. So I guess the biggest regret I have when I studied was I didn't apply for any scholarships. You know, I've spoken to people in the past, and they've received a scholarship because they're the only person that applied for that scholarship. So they might have received, a couple of grand because they're the only person that applied for it. Now, as you can see on the screen there, we offer nearly 400 scholarship opportunities, and the value ranges from $1,000 all the way up to $60,000. Again, another mythbuster, misconception that I want to get rid of out there is, scholarships are only available for those that do well and get those good grades. But we have scholarships for students from all different backgrounds and ages. But we do have merit-based scholarships that are awarded to students who have excelled in some areas. But we also have equity-based scholarships that provide support to students who are facing like financial hardship or other disadvantages as well. The really important thing for scholarships is head to our website and do your research. So as you can see on the screen there, you can head to acu.edu.au/scholarships, and we've got a really great site. You can narrow down your search just by putting in your information, your background, and that'll limit the scholarships that you're able to see. Have a look through every scholarship that you think you're eligible to apply for, apply, because you really have to be in it to win it for these scholarships. And it might mean that you receive a couple of $1,000s to spend on textbooks, but you can spend that on living costs and those sorts of things, or travel and other costs associated with university as well. So definitely recommend to apply for as many scholarships as possible. But there's also scholarships available for not only prospective and future students, but also current students as well. So it's a great resource. Maybe you don't have to look at it every day, but maybe every couple of months, just to jump onto our scholarship website and see what scholarships are available, because each scholarship is different and it will have different application deadlines and opening dates as well. So really important for you all to keep an eye on those scholarships and apply for as many as you can, really, or as many as you think are available. Now, look, that was a pretty quick presentation. We've had a few questions come through, but it looks like our team has gotten to them. I guess I might just ask you one more question. And how have you found your overall experience with ACU? Because, going to university at any time is quite challenging, but obviously, with family and work, those sorts of things. Have you found the experience as a whole to have been everything that you had hoped for?
To be honest, Dave, every time someone asks me that question, I have a very simple answer. It is one of the hardest things I've ever had to do, but it is one of the most incredible things I've ever done as well. It's been so very empowering. It's given me opportunities I would never have imagined before. Last June, I actually travelled to our Rome campus to do one of our subjects over there. I'd never flown any further than Perth. So that was an experience and a half, and it opened my eyes unbelievably so that the privilege of being able to do that was fantastic. But when I say it's the hardest thing I've ever done, the time commitment is massive. It is huge, and each degree is different, and that's I went in very with my eyes open with that, but it was even more than I thought it was going to be. It's a matter of planning is really important. Planning is really important. And it was a bit scary, to be honest. I had done very little study-wise type things since high school. When I was back in high school in the 90s, when you did an assignment, you had a bibliography at the end. You get to university and there's this thing called referencing now, and it was a whole new different world. The facilities available or the support available at ACU is fantastic. Our academic skills team, so when you have your assignment, you can write it, you do up your reference list, and you can actually make an appointment and go and see them, and they can help you through with that referencing. Because as people know, if they've studied before, it may be a matter of having a comma in the wrong spot, and it means your reference isn't correct. So to have that support available is fantastic, and it made life a lot easier and a lot less stressful to have that support there for sure.
That's fantastic to hear, and it's a great point that you've raised, and because there's loads of support services available at ACU, and a lot of people that are watching this, as you said, we go in and there's this thing called referencing, and what does that involve? So it's great that we do have that academic and skills support to assist you along the way. You just have to, once you're in, go out and ask for that support. So it's fantastic to have those services. Now, look, if you do have a question in the future, if we didn't get to all of your questions in tonight's webinar, please get in touch with our prospective student team. The great thing, or the thing I love about a prospective student team, is that they're all current students from all different backgrounds. We have some non-school leavers in there from all different courses. Now, to get in touch with them, as you can see on the screen there, get in touch with them at Ask ACU. So that's www.acu.edu.au/AskACU. Jump onto that website there. There'll be directions on how to get in touch. You can call us, you can email, live chat as well. And we'd be more than delighted to answer any questions that you have, whether it's about a course or university life in general. You can also follow us on social pages, so Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat. We've got some fantastic videos on YouTube as well as Twitter. This presentation is being recorded as well. So in the future, if you want to come back and watch it again, you're more than welcome to do so, because there will be a recording available. But thanks so much, everyone. If you are looking to apply, please get in touch, and we hope to see you at ACU in the future. But in the meantime, you have a great night, and we'll see you later. Bye-bye. Thanks, Anne.
Bye. Thank you.